Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're pulling in a six-figure income, but somehow you still feel like you're completely broke, I need you to hear this loud and clear. It's probably not a personal budgeting failure. You aren't just uniquely bad at math. What you're actually experiencing is a complex, systemic trap, one that's been quietly engineered right around you. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how that trap works, and way more importantly, how you can finally break out of it. All right, let's just dive right in. Okay, I want you to picture Tom back in 1973. He's a single-income earner providing for a family, and after his fixed costs, he's got roughly $36,400 in today's dollars left over to spend or save. Not bad, right? Now fast forward to today, and let's look at Nico and Hazel. They're your classic modern dual-income couple, pulling in a combined $172,000 a year. By today's standards, they are doing everything exactly right. And yet, at the end of the month, after the mortgage, the childcare, and the car payments, they've got just $43 left in their checking account. Literally $43. They're earning 75% more on paper, but living with infinitely more panic. So how on earth does that happen? Section 1. Invisible Middle Class Wealth Traps. The Silent Squeeze. Well, the very first invisible treadmill we accidentally step onto is what I call the new car penalty. That $20,000 figure, that is the massive, devastating depreciation cliff between buying a brand new car and a lightly used one. Take two guys, Troy and Chad. Troy goes out and buys a shiny new F-150 with a staggering 84-month auto loan. I mean, the auto industry literally had to invent 7- and 8-year loans just because regular folks couldn't afford the monthly payments anymore. But the second Troy drives that truck off the lot, he plummets right off a vertical depreciation cliff. When he goes to trade it in later, he's underwater, rolling negative equity right into his next 84-month loan. It's this vicious negative equity flywheel. Meanwhile, Chad just buys a used Camry, completely dodges that $20K cliff, invests the difference, and quietly buys his future freedom. But hey, it's not just the cars. We really need to talk about the dual income trap. See, when banks started lending based on two incomes instead of one, families suddenly had double the borrowing power. Sounds awesome on the surface, right? Except everyone used that extra power to bid against each other for the exact same houses in the exact same good school districts. It just created this massive zero-sum bidding war. Add in a $100,000 premium just to live in that school district, plus staggering childcare costs averaging anywhere from $13,000 to over $24,000 a year, and poof, that second paycheck completely vanishes. In Hazel's case, her $82,000 salary nets her family a shockingly low $8 an hour. $8! That's after taxes, commuting, and daycare. It's wild. Which really brings us to what we actually lost in that whole trade-off. Back in the 1970s, a stay-at-home spouse wasn't just a caregiver. Financially speaking, they were literally an unemployment insurance policy with zero premiums and infinite paid time off. Think about it. If dad lost his job, mom could step in. They had a backup engine. But today, Nico and Hazel are already running both engines at absolute maximum capacity just to keep up with the mortgage. They've unwittingly traded away their financial margin, leaving them with zero backup. Nothing. Section 2. Navigating Macro Financial Illusions. The Systemic Mirage. So for decades, we've all been told that buying a broad index fund is the ultimate rock-solid diversified move. But the math has fundamentally changed. Today, just 7 tech stocks make up a staggering 35% of the entire S&P 500. You think you're buying 500 different companies, but you're actually buying a massive concentrated tech bet, one that's largely propped up by a $725 billion AI spending frenzy. And those other 493 companies, they're basically just sprinkled on top for decoration at this point. This illusion of diversification is leaving everyday investors wildly, dangerously exposed. And speaking of being exposed, we absolutely have to talk about the silent implosion of the U.S. national debt. We just crossed $38.9 trillion. The interest payment alone on that is now $1 trillion a year. Let that sink in. We are paying more to bondholders right now than we spend on the entire military. That actually triggers what historians call Ferguson's Law. It's this incredibly dangerous tipping point where a nation spends more on its past debt than on its own defense. And the mathematical endgame here? It isn't a sudden default. No, it's financial repression. The government will likely just inflate the debt away, which means the hard-earned dollars sitting in your savings account will just quietly, constantly lose their purchasing power. Section 3. Cheap versus wealthy mindsets. Escaping the scarcity trap. To actually escape this whole system, you've got to understand the massive difference between being cheap and being wealthy.
The cheap mindset operates entirely out of pure scarcity. It's always just asking, what does this cost right now? You know the type. This is the person who spends 30 minutes driving all the way across town just to save $1.50 on gas, totally ignoring the fact that they're burning their own precious time and fuel to do it. But the wealthy mindset, that operates strategically. It asks, what is the ROI? What's the return on my investment? They view money as a tool to buy back time, build up their capabilities, and forge real connections.
So, the absolutely crucial point you need to internalize right now is that you cannot shrink your way to wealth. Society loves to tell us to agonizingly cut out our $5 lattes, right? But constantly bailing water with a teaspoon just causes extreme decision fatigue. It completely burns through the mental bandwidth. You desperately need to focus on the big stuff, the $20,000 structural decisions. Things like what car you drive, what neighborhood you live in, what high-value skills you're acquiring. Those are the moves that actually move the needle and build real wealth. Section 4. The 3 Wealth Milestones. The Mathematical Road to Freedom.
Okay, getting to that first $100,000 is an absolute grind, no doubt about it. But once you hit it, you achieve escape velocity. It buys you something incredibly valuable: a quiet mind. Suddenly, a $1,400 unexpected car repair isn't a life-ruining crisis anymore. It's just an annoying Tuesday. Moving up to the $500,000 to $1 million mark, that's where your money actually rolls up its sleeves and gets a job. At a standard 7% return, $500K generates about $35,000 a year. You essentially have a silent worker living in your house generating a second income while you sleep.
But watch out, because there's a massive hazard waiting for you at this level. Lifestyle inflation. It's this intense gravitational pull to upgrade your life with every single raise. You hit $500,000, you're feeling pretty successful, and before you know it, you're leasing a luxury SUV and upgrading to a way bigger house. It's a trap. This hedonic treadmill absolutely ensnares high earners, totally resetting their wealth-building engine back to zero simply because they're feeding their future compound interest straight to their present-day ego. Now, if you can dodge that ego trap, you reach the 3rd milestone, which is governed by the legendary 4% rule. Reaching $2.5 million means you can safely withdraw 4%, which is $100,000, every single year, essentially forever. At that point, your portfolio is silently funding your entire lifestyle. You finally have absolute, uncompromised control over your own time, and that is the ultimate goal. Section 5. The 250K defense strategy, shifting from offense to defense. Here's the scary truth. The very moment your net worth hits $250,000, you officially become what lawyers like to call a collectible defendant. Basically, once you have visible assets, you're suddenly worth suing. Imagine 2 guys, Noah and Lee. Lee gets into a bad car accident and ends up losing 1/3 of his entire net worth to a nasty lawsuit, all because his basic auto insurance just wasn't enough. Now, Noah gets into the exact same type of accident, but he had purchased a simple $32 a month umbrella policy. Noah walked away losing absolutely nothing. Noah succeeded because he actually utilized the unglamorous defense toolkit. This is your unsexy but totally essential checklist for wealth protection. It's that $1 million umbrella policy. It's hiring a fee-only fiduciary and a shark tax strategizing CPA. Honestly, a good CPA pays for themselves almost immediately by unlocking perfectly legal tax loopholes like the backdoor Roth. It's also setting up a revocable living trust, so if something happens to you, your family completely avoids the costly public nightmare of probate court. And yes, it's protecting your income with term, life, and disability insurance. I know, it's boring stuff, but it literally makes you bulletproof. And hey, part of that defense is also protecting your energy. Spending $50 on a lawn service so you don't have to spend 4 hours sweating behind a mower, that isn't you being lazy. That is a massive wealth hack. Think about it. If your time is worth $100 an hour, you just bought back $400 worth of capability for $50. That's incredible ROI. You're taking an expense and turning it into seed capital for compounding your business, your health, or honestly, just preserving your sanity. Section 6. The Stealth Wealth Endgame. Protecting your peace. Ultimately, this all comes down to one final choice. On one side, you have the appearance prison. This is that desperate, exhausting need to broadcast your success to the world with $680 car payments and flashy designer clothes. It leaves you with zero margin and makes you incredibly vulnerable to even a minor sudden crisis. But on the other side, that's stealth wealth. It's the quiet, invisible power of driving a regular sedan, happily living below your means, and hoarding absolute financial control. You aren't dressing up to impress strangers at a stoplight, you're cultivating genuine relationships, and most importantly, you're protecting your peace. So if you take away just one crucial point from this entire explainer, make it this. Wealth is absolutely not your salary. It's definitely not your fancy job title. And it's certainly not the square footage of your house. True wealth is the silent margin you've built up to absorb a shock. It's having options. It's the flexibility and the pure freedom you retain when life, as it inevitably will, punches you right in the face.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one you really need to ask yourself tonight. If one of your paychecks just disappeared tomorrow, would you adapt, or would the trap snap shut? Take a hard, honest look at your own structural vulnerability and start your financial awakening today.